1993, March, the 30th and 31st. Late evening. 2 Sea King helicopters flying in an area that's referred to in the documentation as LFA number 2. They were Evolution Sea King helicopters from the RNAS in the United Kingdom. This is also where UFO reports came in, and by 2:50 a.m., RAF Sharberry Meteorological Officer, weatherman, Wayne Elliott, saw something. Lights, 2 side by side, one larger, red, slightly behind them. It spanned somewhere between 132 foot across C-130 to a 250 foot across 747. Hovered for several minutes, moving across the airfield at speeds estimated at hundreds of miles per hour at 20 to 15 kilometers away. This is a little bit less than, we're going to call it half a football field across. Okay? At 15 to 20 kilometers away, but this is the guy who does normally weather reports. It may be that he is a RAF person, but that doesn't necessarily mean he's a fighter pilot and knows what to look for at a long distance for an airplane. And it was moving at hundreds of miles an hour, and then when it got close to him, 400 feet above the ground, a thin shaft of light came down. It was hovering, and it made a low humming noise, and it appeared to be searching for something on the ground. So it was either 20 or 15 kilometers away and half a football field size, or much smaller than that, since it came close to him and hovered only 400 feet above the ground and was acting exactly like a helicopter. And there were 2 of them in the air. And they're specifically called Sea King helicopters, and you can look them up. That's on the 30th. Now that's at 2:50 a.m. Now I want to point out something. In Britain, this is the location where GMT is established, and if Britain was a country run by logical, rational people that didn't have political disturbances or stupidity, they would just use GMT so that I wouldn't have to tell you that 2 a.m., 2:50 a.m., or whatever, may have been local time, which is off by exactly an hour, on the only place on Earth that's named after a standard that doesn't do that. Yes, I'm absolutely fucking furious with the fact that I found out that back in 1993, at the time, in a country that established a universal timing system, a constant timing system, they altered it by an hour. So some of the reports you're going to get, if you look them up, will tell you GMT, because it's England, they should, and some of them are using local time because, fuck it, why not, right? On the 31st, now remember this happened, wait a minute, 2:50 a.m., reference to 30th? Or was it 2:50 a.m. and it was really the 31st? Have fun. There's no rule that says you have to force fuck these things to make sense. Let's continue. On the 31st, it was well understood that Cosmos 2238 was going to have space debris drop, specifically rocket booster number 22586. We actually know the ID codes for these things. Would be re-entering over Ireland, Devon, Belgium. By 2:10 a.m., it was visible from North Italy to Edinburgh, Scotland, and actually further. And it was visible from Sweden to Spain, almost down to the Gulf, the Straits of Gibraltar. And it wasn't just described by space enthusiasts and boffins. You see, they knew it was going to happen, and it was in the newspaper, so nobody could bullshit a UFO story together. And they also sat around and recorded on video cameras and took photos, which, if you're a UFO buff, you're not allowed to look at because your eyeballs will burn out or something. Every one of them shows exactly what you would expect. Something re-entering the atmosphere and breaking up. They learned their lesson from 1978, December 31st, when Cosmos 1068 debris re-entered and caused UFO hysteria, even though, again, someone was easily able to explain to him it's space debris. And people began to see all sorts of things, or at least that's the assertion. No. Everybody in 1993 said exactly the same shit. They saw lights in the sky, they couldn't identify what they were, and then later on when they were interviewed, oh yeah, it was a rocket booster reentry. It was in the newspapers. There was an effort to make sure that the British tradition of taking something ordinary and making it into fairies on hat pins made of paper, that actually happened, wouldn't be done. There are a lot of people who are fucking cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs on these stories, and they push them. It's a tradition in Britain. And I swear they do it to filter out stupid people. They may be doing it now. Now, a timeline was dumped out on a couple of pages, and it indicates the following mixed metaphor timing systems. 21:30 hours, Birchwood, Warrington, UK. That's the name of the location you find on Google Street View and Maps. I'm not using the names that were used in the report, because if you type those in, you will not find them on Google Street View, and you will not find them in Google Maps. See the link below to a Google string map for around 300 miles of distance here. Another one at 22:10 is Camelford, UK. Yes, it's called something else in the story, but that's the location you have to type in again because Google's inconsistent as fuck. Finningley, or some other thing, in Dorncaster, UK, was at 22:40 hours. Then we have 2:10 a.m., I guess that's local time. Cosford, Wolverhampton, UK. And then 2:50 a.m., Shawberry, UK. Now, I don't know if these timings are accurate because this is from the UFO conspiracy theory pages. And also people debunking them, using their own words, instead of saying, here's the actual times, GMT, because fuck Britain's 1 hour shift. And this is when shit happened. But that's the timing. Now, if you're not aware of this, that would indicate several hours of activity. The first ones should be the helicopters. But they're not. So let's go on. Why am I responding? What am I responding to here? Now, again, I'm going to repeat this. It was understood at the time, during the reports, it was 2 helicopters in an area. That means one can come up and another one can come up. Another person misinterpreted a distance of some 20 kilometers to be able to identify something by physical shape that would be less than 1 football field across, by his own reckoning, or about 250 foot across, 747 or a C-130. And there's some fly in the ointment or fly in the shit here who's going to misquote every bit of this and ignore part of it. Or say, hand-waving, yeah, it could have been the booster in the air and the thing, but I'd rather believe it's gray aliens in red matter. So, real-life X-Files, UK government, MOD, UFO files. Story on Number 7 News Australia with Ross Colhart. Heavily featuring Nick Pope. Who's Nick Pope? He's a person who claims to have had the UFO desk at the MOD. Heroically digging into MOD files. Hypersonic Aurora planes or UFOs. Nick Pope alleged hundreds of reports in places where there were less than 40 sightings and did not do the follow-up where many of them said, oh, okay, I was actually looking in a different direction than the updates, because whatever fit, whatever he wanted, became the truth. Yes, I'm not just hanging him out to dry, I'm burying him. He retold a sighting that I just repeated from a meteorologist as the following. A center tail area, red glow from a triangle-shaped object heading north just above the horizon against a light sky, a vast triangle, hovering 200 feet, firing a narrow beam like a laser down to the ground and then flying off at high speed. Mach 2 between RAF Cosford, which is the way it's termed, and RAF Shawberry. This is 23 miles, and it was only about an hour and a half for it to travel that, supposedly at Mach 2. Maybe it did it thousands of times. 23 miles. in an hour and some change. So it's less than 20 mile an hour, but that's Mach 2. That little detail's left out. Ignoring every report of 2 police helicopter sightings, it could cause people to think things are moving quickly because they see it over here and then they see it over here really quickly at like, north and west. And ignoring that there was a re-entry of a chunk of space junk, or poo-pooing it, and anti-UFO cult people going out with cameras and video cameras and recording it, and also somebody doing their damnedest to make sure they could disprove it by doing it on a computer program. I'll bring that up in a minute. On the 7 News Australia video, first 28 seconds of obviously faked video. Overtly done. They weren't even trying to hide that. They were making this as a dramatic recreation. And then you can hear people saying, something's in the distance, strange lights in the sky, it's coming this way, we don't know what it is, implying that they're military observers, and also having it read actual audio recording. It didn't say it was an actual audio recording from the 1990s. It's an actual audio recording from a studio. And they don't want to bring that up. Also, I should point out this news website doesn't do anything other than just post a video, and that's it. There isn't anything in the description to explain why the fuck they did this. BBC also did something similar with the same Nick Pope guy, I think his name is. Never describing the object, but these are military observers that are told, if you don't describe what we're talking about, I'm going to beat you to death. No, I'm not kidding. Okay, you're telling us there's something scary in the distance? Yeah, describe it. Well, I can't. Which way is it? I can't tell you. How far away? I don't know. What does it look like? I don't know. It's lights. At that point, you have somebody show up with a Jeep and say, get the pothead out of here. You're supposed to be spotter? You're supposed to tell us what we're doing? No direction? No data? No description? No, it's a couple of voice actors in a booth talking. Then there's a video with a pilot and or a navigator discussing a pilot and navigator being confused by what they saw at one night. Another person saying that a radar operator said it was climbing like the clappers, at which point I stopped watching the video because finally it put up the time and date stamp. March 30th and 31st, 1993? Yeah. Is that right? Yeah. That's all I had to look up to find it. It's the only goddamn thing that happened in that period of time in the UK that anybody paid attention to. It was in all the papers, along with, some might say it was about that thing we reported of a re-entry. And also, the guy's quoting here, the quote he gives doesn't have anything to do with the actual report. Except Nick Pope, what was his name again? Was his name Nick Pope? Nick Pope! Wouldn't want to emphasize the asshole. Kept saying, say it's a triangle. Say it's a triangular spacecraft. Say it. To a guy who's a meteorologist who doesn't know whether it's triangular or not. He's supposed to observe weather and report. He's not supposed to assume it's a tornado. No, you saw a whirlwind or dust devil. So anyway, and he didn't appreciate being misquoted by Nick Pope or whatever his name is. Maybe he changed his mind later. Nick Pope worked at the MOD for a very short time and quit at one point. Him quitting does not from them shutting down. He quit in the 90s and they shut down in the year 2006 or something. He has nothing to do with the MOD and the UFO files they investigated, but he plays it up because he was technically working or involved with them up to a couple of years before this happened. There is no coinky-dink about him leaving. He has no effect on it. Heroically diving through MOD files when he wasn't working there at the time. He stopped working there shortly after this incident. It's Mach 2, flying 23 miles in about an hour. He's totally not misquoting people. There was hundreds of reports when there was less than 40. The earliest occurrence of the words like the clapper of a mill or a bell was in the 1820s. For fast movement, this was a quote used in World War II and in non-military context in the 1950s in the UK. That was much more interesting and much more informative than looking up this bullshit story. It was a helicopter sighting, 2 of them, and re-entry of garbage acknowledged. Good day, good luck, goodbye.